Welcome to the Scale Model Podcast. In this podcast, we aim to entertain, inform, and promote the hobby of scale model kit building with interviews, reviews, and news about the hobby. The Scale Model Podcast is currently recorded bi-weekly and is available where your favorite podcasts are found, including iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, as well as our website at scalemodelpodcast.com. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions via email at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com or on Facebook, facebook.com/scalemodelpodcast. We also have a YouTube channel as well as a Patreon page at patreon.com/scalemodelpodcast. The money raised will be used to help offset web hosting and other costs. We're also going to be actually starting this show, random some giveaways and other bonuses to those Patreon supporters. So feel free to join the other amazing supporters at our Patreon page, patreon.com/scalemodelpodcast. So welcome to episode 24, sponsored by Goodman Models. I'm your host, Stuart Clark, and I'm also here with the ever-present, ever-busy, ever-working, hopefully on his Musaru car kit, Mr. Anthony Goodman.
Hi, Stu. How are you?
Not bad. I had to throw that one in because I believe Ian posted today from our good friends of On the Bench.
I saw that
he's got it painted.
He does. And they're giving me some prompts on their latest episode on the bench.
Yep, that's good.
And I did start it.
Awesome. Awesome. So great news. We're also featuring a guest tonight, and we're going to surprise you with him a little bit later on. So we're just going to get right off to the latest news. As normal, it may be summer, but still lots of news. So first off, Santiago, Chile, way down the southern hemisphere. They have a big show, Latin Militaire. This is a huge model show they have down there. I assuming hosted by the National Model Group down there. I don't know if it's IPMS chapter or not. But just some excellent photos that were there. They had over 570 models on the table.
Nice.
Quite a few prominent guests, I guess, in the southern hemisphere.
Looks like fun.
Yep, some really cool things. So I've thrown up a link there from our friends at iModeler.com. There's actually a total of 5 parts to this page. Definitely check it out. Some really nice work on the tables, as always.
Excellent.
Yeah, so some really cool stuff. So always nice to see. Okay, a new Polish concept tank in 1/35th scale. I know our friends of On the Bench talked about this too, and it's also the number one right now of hot new kits on ScaleMates. This is something looks like out of the future. It's a light tank. It's a PL-01. It was actually a concept designed by a company in Poland, as well as with supports from BAE Systems. It's based on a Swedish light tank.
Okay.
It was first unveiled in 2013, and I think then they've decided not to go forward with it. But this thing is just, you look at this thing, and it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. And as I think Julian mentioned, if I'm building this thing, I just want to take the tracks off, make it a hover tank, because it looks very sci-fi. You look at this thing, looks like it's a rail gun on it and all that, but it's basically TACOM, 1/35th scale. Pretty cool looking. Not a lot of information yet. They're saying due for release late 2019, but I can definitely see a lot of possibilities in this. So kind of neat looking. Not much else.
I wonder if it was supposed to be with all those angular plates, supposed to be like radar, like a low radar profile.
They basically said that as well. Ceramic armor. All the crew actually sat in the main hull, and there was room for 4 soldiers. So the turret was completely
there was a real
remote
one.
control.
There was a real test type.
Yep, they built one. All-around protection. Like I said, it was more like a light tank because it could carry some troops and that. But apparently, pretty cool. You could have either a 105 or a 120 millimeter gun, which is a NATO standard, included an autoloader. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely got a really interesting look.
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely very interesting looks. Like I say, it has stealth technology, thermal camouflage, radio wave. It was supposed to be covered with radio wave absorbent material.
Okay.
It just looks like something out of a movie set. So.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I could definitely, I could definitely see this would be fun to build, I think, just to do something different with. So, and I think that's why a lot of people are talking about it for some of the scratch building possibilities. So there you go. All right, from tanks onto ships. Black Cat models. They've released these. I saw these a little while ago. These are a 3D printed 1/350th scale accessory. So they're not photo etch. They're 3D printed in a very nice resin. And as regular listeners know, I just love teeny tiny photo etch. I'm lying, actually. Fiddly photo etch. But if I had some of these, I might actually tackle a 350th scale ship or something. But look at the detail on these things.
Yeah, these look amazing.
And so for example, the one I'm really impressed with is the 2-pounder pom-pom. So this is an 8-gun mount, and it has 2 parts. 3D designed and printed. It has 2 parts. Just one part's the base, the other part lets you set the angle of the guns. And this thing's just gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, they've really come a long way with getting rid of those sort of grow lines, and these are beautiful.
Yeah, all sorts of different ones. They've got Vickers .50 machine gun on a quad mount with shield. This is the kind of stuff hey, my hats are off to the guys who can, who do all that photo etch, but 9 or 10 parts for a little tiny fiddly gun, that would drive me mad. Where this here,
these are one piece.
Yeah, they're basically one or 2 parts. Normally 2, because you can set the angle of the gun in some cases. But now the price is up there a little bit. But this definitely falls under, if it keeps me from going nuts and allows me to complete the kit in a reasonable time. Why the hell not? Absolutely gorgeous. I just noticed here they have a Royal Navy Lewis .303. Set of 12, 3D designed and printed. And these things look, for 1/350th scale, these things look absolutely exquisite. So 12 of them for 5.79 euros. So
so that's what? Let's say 20 Canadian or so.
Well, no, multiplied by 1.5.
So a little. So 25.
About 8. Well, no. If it was for which one? The first one.
I'm just looking at the pom pom.
Okay, so for the pom pom one, 1079, it's about 17 bucks, and you actually get 2 in that set.
Yeah.
So 2 separate guns.
You spend a little bit, but you have everything you need.
And you're not going blind.
You can actually finish it.
You can actually finish it and not swear at it. And like I said, my hat's off. And all the kudos in the world for the guys that work with the photo etch and all that, but not for me. And it's just just like other, manufacturers like Yahoo came out with just photo etch instrument panels because they realized there was a series of modelers who didn't need every little tiny detail. And I see now Edouard's kind of taken that up now too. They're offering sets with just the instrument panel, where they used to have, everything. So, definitely check this out. They're based in the EU, and looks like you can order right from their site. And I know I've seen them at other stores and the stuff like that. So, I just,
cool
again, and the fact it's 3D printed. So, the technology's getting there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it looks like Black Cat Models has kits for sale
They have kits as well. Yep.
And then they're doing the accessories and detail sets. So they really know their ships. So
exactly.
Any fan of shipbuilding,
this
would be a great company to check out.
I'm sure this is nothing new. And I'm just looking here for example, they've got detail sets for right now they only have 3. So the Rambridge Fletcher 1943 detail set, and it looks like it comes with all the extra bits for 70 euros. So you get the torpedo tubes, the guns,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So again, if you're doing a carrier or a battleship, you're going to be paying some big bucks, like if you're doing the Missouri or something. But again, if it's something you want, if it's big enough,
save up your pesos.
Save up your euros, your pesos, whatever you want. This I could see, this definitely, because you look at how much people pay on photo etch anyway in aftermarket. We don't need to mention Ian's aircraft carrier, do we?
No. Well, no. I think they have mentioned a thing or two about budgeting for all the accessories, right?
Yes, exactly. So
the kit is cheaper than all the bits you need to make it look seaworthy.
Exactly. So so definitely something to check out. Okay, moving on. Some new items from our friends at Trumpeter. They announced 4 new items. So basically, they've got the Russian S-300V 9A82 SAM launcher. This is an air defense missile system. Again, you could do some futuristic sci-fi thing with this thing. This thing consists of a track, a radar, and like 2 great bloody missile tubes, designed to engage short and intermediate range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, strategic and tactical aircraft. Reporting name in the West is the SA-12. So again, full 35th scale.
Wow.
This is going to be a big boy. This will be fairly large. We're just going to see if there's any dimensions. Note decals. Comes with details. Masking sets for the cab. Looks like a little bit of wire. Sprue shots look nice. And of course the obligatory photo etch. Here we go. 305.8 millimeters. So about a foot long.
Wow, that's a monster of a kit, eh?
Yep, 980 parts. So that's pretty big. Then we're moving on. We have a 1/700th scale of the HMS Type 23 frigate by the Royal Navy. This is the Montrose. The first one was commissioned in '89, and the 16th was launched in May 2000. Commissioned 2002. So it's basically the standard Royal Navy frigate that serves right now in Her Majesty's Navy. Looks like it comes with a couple of helicopters, a couple of the Merlin helicopters. Only one decal choice for HMS Montrose, but looks quite nice.
That ship would have been just there was one iteration of that particular boat, right?
Well, no. This is what's kind of surprising. They actually built 16, but they're just giving you.
Would they all be slightly different though, or
probably not? No, very little difference in these would have been over the years. This one, so for example, this one was commissioned in '94. So it's kind of in the middle of the series. It was built. It's based in Plymouth. That's right. So again, you've got 190 millimeters in length, beam 23 millimeters, 4 sprues. Deck wood pattern finely rendered, contains an engraved nameplate, some photo etch there as well. So fairly nice looking one if you need to complete your modern Royal Navy collection.
Awesome.
Yeah, looks good. Then we have the Soviet Tupolev 22 Blinder. This is their tactical bomber in 1/72nd scale. This is kind of a funky looking thing because it's got the engines in the back tail. It's got a swept wing. Quite good. It was designed to go in deep into enemy territories. And it served with both the Soviet, and they also exported it to Libya and Iraq. And this plane you get some different camouflage or decal schemes, including a couple of Russian ones, and looks like a Ukrainian one. Big ass plane. It was a
That's an understatement.
It was a big boy. You could have 9 tons of ordnance on this thing, or a KH-22 cruise missile. That's the one you see about 4 or 5 sprue shots in. Great monster of a thing. So again, this comes out big, 562.9 millimeters, so almost 2 feet. 321 millimeters wide, so a foot wide. 160 parts, clear parts for the canopy. So again, for those of you, I'm trying to think of an equivalent for this thing. It doesn't really have one. It's just, it's bigger. It's bigger than an F-111. Would
it be like it would have the same role as the B-2 bomber? No.
Kind of a similar thing. Yeah, it was designed to go long and far. Yeah, older generation. Basically. Okay, moving on. 1/35th scale, another Russian vehicle, the 72V-64. This is an air defense system called the SA-22 Greyhound, if you're the NATO reporting. Self-propelled anti-aircraft gun and missile system. This was designed to replace the SA-19. So it's basically a gun, anti-air gun, and a surface-to-air missile platform. Developed in '89. And then once the collapse of the Soviet Union happened, they changed it slightly. But it's designed as an air defense system for your airfields and high-value targets. And it actually entered service in 2003. So it's a fairly new addition. Looks like you got a couple of nice camouflage schemes there. I like the, looks like
an Arctic one, eh?
Yeah, that one looks kind of cool. They have deployed this in Syria to support its soldiers during the civil war there. So again, small little decal set. 391 millimeters in wide, 17 sprues, cabin tires. So again, a fair size one, but again, if you're a fan of the modern Russian stuff, and again, their stuff always looks like you could modify it for like Warhammer 40K or some sort of sci-fi thing. Main tires are hollow rubber. The thing misses, it'll be rubble. So full drivetrain assembly, mass for windows, etc.
Wow, I'm just marveling at all these kits that you get your photo etch sheet and your masks right in there. That's amazing. I'm still amazed by it.
I know, more and more they're doing it. Yeah, especially for the other little bit of full photo etch, especially things like grills and stuff like that. I think it's
because they're making all that stuff out of like trying to find the right sort of scale of grid to work with to make something that looks right. It's just nice. It's all there.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's great to see kits that are. It really seems like the manufacturers are stepping up, and I like it.
Excellent. Okay, moving on, we have Italeri with their news for the upcoming month. A bunch of new releases from them again, 5 actually, to be notable. Let's start off with they're producing a BF 110 C&D model in 1/48 scale. This was the classic fighter bomber multi-engine from World War II. There's going to be 5 versions in German and Italian service. Looks like some interesting paint schemes there. These were earlier models. These were armed with 2 20mm guns and 4 machine guns. Some nice looking sprue shots there. I won't be surprised if it's a reissue. But still, nice to have another option there. What do we have here? 25.1 centimeters, so that's not bad. 35 euros, so it's up there in price. So hopefully it stands
about $70.
Yeah, about $70. Yeah, about that. Yeah. Now here's one I know some of the car guys will like because we talked about a larger release. I think it was in 1/16. This is the 1/24 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing, as I say, in the smaller 1/24 scale, 29 euros. Very attractive car. It was produced starting in 1954. Had those famous Gullwings.
Anything with a Gullwing.
Anything with a Gullwing.
Right?
He's all over it. He's all over it.
The winner.
Yep. So a lot of different decal schemes, a lot of different license plates, including California and Monaco. So, you can have your car in Hollywood or you can have your car
Monaco for sure.
Monaco, where all the money in the yachts are. 4-speed transmission, as we said, innovative design. Looks like a very nice kit in that scale. Not much information of it, just it's going to be roughly 14.8 centimeters in length, and will be coming out fairly soon. Nice looking blue plastic the body's cast in, but you can paint it the way you want. All right, and look, another 1/35 scale Tiger tank kit, Anthony.
What? Brand new to the market.
I tell you, they just keep making them. This is a Tiger Ferdinand, 1/35 scale, 19.1 centimeters, 33 euros. This was an unsuccessful, this is one of the prototypes. This was the official designation for an unsuccessful heavy tank prototype produced by Porsche in Germany in 1942. It was not selected, and the Henschel design was produced as the Tiger 1.
Interesting. It does look different. I've never seen that design.
Many of the produced chassis were instead rebuilt as Elephant tank destroyers. I thought that chassis looked familiar.
Yeah.
So I stand corrected. So this is brand new, not just another one. It's just like Spitfires, right? Sometimes. These were powered by twin V10 air-cooled gasoline Porsche 101 engines. So 2 of them. Each of them would drive a separate generator for each side of the tank. Generally new and unorthodox and prone to break down and require more frequent maintenance. So they decided not to go forward with this. But again, looks like a fairly nice looking kit. Moving on, since we were just we're going to be talking soon with our guest about the Apollo program. We're up to the 50th anniversary. Here's a Sea King in 1/72 scale, and it was used to actually do the Apollo.
rescue the crew?
Well, it's actually the recovery. Yeah, it wouldn't be a rescue,
recovery.
But basically,
okay.
they would fly out to the pod once it's landed on the ocean, and that's what they used it for. So yeah, it was used for
awesome.
Apollo 11. One of the decal schemes includes Helicopter Squadron 4, the Black Knights, and this was used as the pickup helicopter on the 24th of July, 1969. There's also a couple other versions, one for
Royal
Navy, nice looking one,
yeah.
and another one for Apollo 17 pickup in 1972. So,
cool. That is really cool.
Yeah, nice looking
yeah.
scheme.
I think that's sharp.
Yeah, nice looking decal scheme. So that looks like it's going to be good. Then we have for larger car fans, particularly Formula One guys and girls, the 1/12 scale. So it's going to be big. Renault RE20 Turbo for €160. Just to get you an idea on how big this thing. The box size is 56 centimeters by 28 centimeters. So this is pretty nice. This is from the 1980 season. Very nice looking scheme in the Renault yellow and all that.
The sprues look very crisp.
They do, don't they?
They have some sprue shots there. Yeah, very nice.
So bigger scale. So this is going to build up to be a little bit of a beast. But again, for those F1 guys, got 500 pieces, including screws. Partially assembled swivel. Oh, this is why. Swivel casters, working suspension, highly detailed engine, removable fairing, with slicks for tires. They shoved some shots of it kind of all apart, and it looks bloody gorgeous. I have to admit, if you're an F1 guy in this scale, you'll probably really enjoy that. So they should be, I'm trying to think here, this one this particular car, or the team, won 3 Grand Prix races in that season. So,
okay.
Very nice indeed. So those are going to be available later this month from your local store, distributor, whatever. Very nice indeed. Okay, moving on, we have, let me find it here, again. Airfix. Oh yeah, they have a B-25 new tool. I think it's a new tool, but basically the next release, this is the B-25 Mitchell. But what's interesting, I thought, was it includes one of the Mitchells that took part in the famous USS Hornet Doolittle raid. So just a couple of months after Pearl Harbor, in April 42, the USS Hornet, an aircraft carrier, had 16 of these Mitchells on board, and they got within 200 miles of the Japanese coast and launched a raid. Didn't do a ton of damage, but it was more psychological. But very
now
famous.
Doolittle was the commander, right?
He was the commander as well. So very famous raid, a lot of history behind it. Basically, they flew from the aircraft carrier, which no one wasn't sure if it was actually going to work. And then what happened was they continued on to China and either crash landed or found fields or bailed out or whatever. So, very, very famous. So, some very nice looking schemes there if you want to build something from a bit of history. And then there's some other schemes for other squadrons and that. So, that'll be available soon from your Airfix distributors, of course. Okay, moving on. We have AMKs, long promised, 1/48 scale F-14. This is the of the model world. This is the Duke Nukem in computer games of the model world. The long promised. I think they announced this 2 or 3 years ago.
This is sort of been in the works for quite a while.
There's been a lot of promises made on dates and that, and a lot of following through. And there's, rightly or wrongly, that any time that someone posts an update about this, the manufacturer, there's a lot of criticism that ends up going on out there. So there was a model show in Malaysia last weekend. So they had this as a test build, and they got a bunch of the master modelers to sign it. Go figure. But they also had some sprue shots and stuff like that. So, and already there's people criticizing, saying the nose is too pointed and things like that. But again, for those of you who are waiting for this, looks like a little bit more. And still nothing more on a release date. So we'll just have to
something to look forward to.
Your mileage may vary. I'm just leaving it out there like that.
Sure.
Probably
hopefully it gets out, because it's nice to have an option.
You would nice to have another option, but I don't like when manufacturers make big promises and then they don't deliver.
It'd be better if you guys could surprise the modeling community with something big. Maybe that's the way to do it.
Something like Wingnet did with the Lancaster. Exactly. Okay, moving on. Some classics here. 2 big truck releases from AMT. So this is from Collector Model. And 2 AMT big rig kits. So it's going to be scheduled for release within a month. First one's a Peterbilt Wrecker truck, like a tow truck. Again, it's a reissue. Huge bit of a kit, actually. 12 inches, 1 foot in length. And the second one is the Autocar DC 9964B dump truck. So your classic-looking, very big dump truck. With monotone, as it says in the box, I'm not lying here, monotone ultra-strength heated body. So it's tough when you're dumping a lot of stuff. So yeah,
very cool.
Very cool. Again, I'm not a truck guy, so please feel free to hammer on in the Facebook comments. Let me know if you're looking forward to these. They look nice. I'll say that. A lot of nice decal schemes and stuff like that. So we'll go with that. Okay. Last but not least, upcoming kit releases. Oh yeah, we'll mention this in a second. But Cult TV Man, we're actually going to be interviewing him in a few minutes. So we'll talk about that. But anyway, a couple of upcoming kit releases. Again, keeping on the Apollo theme, the monogram reissue of the 1/48 scale first lunar landing. They're also going to have some reissues, the Columbian Eagle 196 scale from Revell, Germany, the Saturn V. So yeah, a lot of classics there. Then we've also got some of the reissues of some of the classic drag cars. So Little Tarantula is a dragster. That was a reissue. That was a monogram reissue from Atlantis. That's going to be coming out. And so generally all sorts. But we're gonna talk about more when we have the interview in a few minutes. So we'll talk about that. Okay, last but not least, Bandai news or Gundam news.
There's
what have you got?
There's the current releases for I guess June is their last kind of batch of releases. And I'm not sure we talked about them in June. So here's a couple new Gundam releases. There's a high grade Universal Century 1-144. Silver Bullet Suppressor, and that was just released June 22nd, and that goes for I think about $30 Canadian.
Okay.
And they also came out, I think we might have mentioned this one before, but it's worth mentioning again. There was a master grade 1-100 scale of the Gundam NT1 version 2. So that's the Gundam Alex from the War in the Pocket series. And that's a really cool design. And the NT1 was the new Type 1. So after the success of the first Gundam, they tried to replicate that, and they tried to develop another Gundam in secret that they could get other new Type pilots to use in the war effort. So that's gonna be a really cool kit. It comes with the Chobham armor, and a whole bunch of other little neat little
looks neat.
Accessories and something else we were just discussing before we started recording. Apparently, there's a whole brand new series of Gundam models called the High Resolution model, and the one that we noted that was being released on June 29th was the 1-100 scale Gundam Astre Noir, and the price on this is 17,280 yen. So that's about $180 Canadian. So we thought, wow, what is this? I hadn't heard of this sort of series, or level. There's a bunch of different levels, sort of for the quality or like the the complexity of the kit. And when we got into that, looking at what this series was all about, you're getting, I believe it was metal.
Yeah, so
pieces.
Basically, I did a search, and they've actually had a couple. So they've released the first one in 2016. So I'm surprised neither of us have heard of this. So basically, so it's the Gundam Meta series. Each kit, and this is from Gundam.fandom.com, their wiki. Each kit consists of a pre-assembled skeletal inner frame made from die-cast metal parts, ABS, and POM plastic. as well runners of the armor pieces with a glossy or metallic finish. The inner frame is made in China, while the outer frames are made in Japan. So yeah, this thing's pretty solid. And this
so
is
that's kind of different. And I've never seen metal parts in, the 1-100 lines or the 1-144 lines, or even the 160. There is a series of 1-60 kits as well.
Yeah.
So this particular kit, the Gundam Ashtray, is from a series called Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Destiny, and this particular model has a couple features. It has a tail mount base, and it can rotate to kind of be in the flight mode, and it has a bunch of removable parts, and it looks very impressive.
So definitely, just for a different type of builder, but again, this looks pretty cool. And again, as usual, we learn something new every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
216, that's brand new to me.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. There you go. I threw up a link to Bandai's site. They have a sub-site for that, so we'll have that in the show notes as well. So.
Great.
Okay, just a very brief look at what's hot at scalemates.com. As we talked about, that PL Polish Light Tank, #1 there. And, of course, the 124 scale Big Grumman Hellcat from Airfix.
I'm surprised that's not #1.
Oh, I think, well, I'm not sure how the formula works. It's probably just, this came out after the Hellcat. I bet you the Hellcat's been #1 for a while.
I think it was last week,
right?
Yeah,
so then we've got the Rye-Field model EZ8 Sherman in 135th, Airfix's newest Spitfire Mark 14, and onwards with some of the other usual suspects, people we've been talking about before. Look at that, your Sheridan's still up there. That new tool M551, it's still up in the top 10 or so.
Yeah.
So it's doing well.
Achilles is up there, lots of German stuff.
Oh, there's a Rye-Field model Syrian self-propelled howitzer coming out in 135th scale. It's changed parts. It's not brand new. They've changed the parts. So, and then, look at this one. Dragon's changing the parts. They've got a 8-ton half-track with the 88mm Flak 3637 as a combo set. I remember when Tamiya had that as the combo set. I had that year when I was a kid. I never built it and I sold it. I've got the gun now. I should get the half-track at some point again. But that's a Reebox. And then, of course, we've got that Bruno railgun we talked about last week from Panzer Concepts. So,
the F-14D Tomcat's up there. That'd be cool.
I've got the A. I haven't even gotten close to building it yet. So eventually I'll build it.
Same here. I have an A as well.
Yeah, Country Dodge Charger, 69 Dodge Charger RT from round 2. Change box. So, all sorts of good things. Never a shortage, is there? Okay. All right. So that's what's happening there. Now, let's talk a little bit, word from our sponsor, let's talk a little bit about some super sanding blocks. And you got some news for us, dude.
I think we were talking, and we are going to do something for our wonderful Patreon supporters. We are going to have a draw just within our Patreon supporter group for a super sanding single.
Yes.
I'm not sure which grit. Maybe we can have people chime in on our Facebook page which grit do they want to see raffled off.
Yep.
And that's just a thank you to our Patreon supporters. So one of you lucky guys will get one of those, and
exactly.
We'll do a random draw maybe for our next episode. How about that?
Exactly. We can also ask the winner if they have a particular preference. If you wanted to,
absolutely.
Too. Yeah, one of those.
You can pick their own.
Yeah, we can figure out something. So we're gonna do that. The website's up and going.
It is. Yeah, I have lots of stock available. If you'd like a value pack set, I've got them. If you would like a super sanding single, I have all the grits in stock, and I even have factory seconds available at a discount. So feel free to reach out to me. You can check me out on Facebook, Goodman Models. And have a look at the site. It's still a work in progress. It's a little bit of an ugly duckling right now, but
it's getting there. It's got the important stuff. If people want to order something, they can order something.
Yeah, they can order something from it.
And what's that website again?
It is goodmanmodels.com.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. All right. Let's move on. So, as I mentioned, we have a great interview with Steve Iverson of Cult TV Man. We had a really good chat with him. As usual, when we get into some awesome people, the interview went almost an hour. So make yourself comfortable. Make yourself a cup of tea or a coffee or some other beverage. and enjoy this interview. We really enjoyed it as well. So here we go. And it's Stuart and Anthony back again. We're in our interview portion of the podcast, and this week we've got a very special guest. We've got Mr. Steve Iverson, just like the basketball player, I'm told, from Cult TV Man. He's been running Cult TV Man, the website, from 1996. Kind of went public more into the internet space around 2000. After a career in broadcasting, he focused on promoting and celebrating the hobby, especially sci-fi monster models. Actually, sci-fi and monster models. Let me correct that. Let me put that comma. Thank you, Anthony. He's published books on various things like the Jupiter 2 kit, and has recently started distribution for Mobius and Doll and Hobby models. I know Mobius because I just built Battlestar Pegasus for Mobius. He can be reached at culttvmanshop.com, culttvman.com, and a few other ones we'll get into. Welcome to the Scale Model Podcast, Steve.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. You know, I have to admit, it's fun seeing some of the new releases that come out from what you guys, you know, it makes me feel old.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, every time I see one of these kits, I think, oh man, I had that when I was in grade school. You know?
I know.
It's nice that they're, you know, some of these things are coming out that we haven't seen in 40 years. You know.
Well, here's a good example. I was looking at your website today, and I don't remember this Mercury Atlas Everything's a Go in 1/110 scale. It came with the launch tower and everything. That
was like
cool.
the early 60s.
Yeah, I don't think
it was originally an Atlas missile kit.
Yeah, that's right.
That Revell put out in 1958, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And then they retooled it a couple years later when the Mercury program was all hot to trot. And
cool.
That kit has been highly sought. It's been reissued a couple of times.
Yeah.
But the last time it was reissued was like 10 years ago, and it was a European-only release.
Oh, wow.
So this was a welcome thing. When the guys at Atlantis said, hey, we're going to put this out, I was like, oh, yeah. Ooh,
yeah, there's some cool stuff. Yeah, I've built quite a few things lately. I've been going into the sci-fi bent. But I'm going to stop yapping, and we'll let Anthony ask or am I going to ask a question, Anthony? Am I going to?
I switched it up. You want to roll?
Oh, we switched it up. All right. So we're gonna get right into this. So let's talk about how'd you get into the business. So we'll start with that, and then we'll talk a little bit about how it's changed over the years.
Well, you know, let me just turn the clock as far back as I can. You know, I was a kid and building these kits. I got a cousin who had the Aurora Monsters, and I thought they were the coolest things in the world. When I was a kid, the first model kit I actually built was Revell 1/48 scale lunar module.
Nice.
When man went to the moon in '68 and '69, and that was, you know, an inspiring event for any 5- and 6-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. And I think it still inspires people today. But it kind of pushed me into this creative model building thing.
Right.
You know, when we were kids, everybody built models. You go to a birthday party and you get model kits for your birthday.
Yep.
So it was just kind of a part of growing up. And it's something that I carried with me, you know, throughout my life, all through high school, through college. Didn't do a lot of it because, you know, when you're in college, you got two things on your mind:
cars and girls.
But the models were always kind of there. And when Polar Lights came along,
right,
in the late 90s.
Yep.
I remember saying to my wife, hey, look, they've got this Addams Family house, you know, and it was exciting because it was one of those kits that was not even around when I was a kid, but we knew it existed because we'd seen pictures of it, and we wanted them. And so she ended up getting me that for Christmas. Aww. And at that point, it was one of the first Polar Lights kits, and it was like a $60 or an $80 kit that was available only through FAO Schwartz. But that really kind of inspired my interest. And then kind of coincidentally around that same time, when I was working at Turner Broadcasting, the company was switching over from computer terminals at all the workspaces to PCs on the desktop. So they plopped a PC at my desk, and there was a thing called the internet, and I got out there, and it was like, I wonder if there's anybody out there building Aurora kits, or I wonder if anybody remembers, the Star Trek models and everything. So I went looking. I didn't find any. There weren't that many people out there doing it. There were a few people back then on America Online that were excited about models, that were into just kind of the nostalgia of it all. And so I was like, well, all these guys are doing websites. Can I put up a website? How do you put up a website? And so pretty soon, in a week, I had a website up with 2 pages, and it just kind of grew from there. Then somebody found that website, and they're like, hey, I'm interested in this, and they'd send me pictures. It's like, let me put that on the website. So that's how Cult TV Man really started out.
Cool.
And then it just kind of grew from there. My friend Anthony Taylor, told me that, hey, that's a good name, that Cult TV Man thing. And he's like, you ought to cash in on it. And so I just kind of labeled the website Cult TV Man's website, or Cult TV Man's Sci-Fi Modeling, as it was. And I started a newsletter back in the day, and it just kind of grew from there. A few years later, a bunch of us that had kind of formed this community online decided to meet up at Wonderfest, which at that point was maybe 10 years going at that time.
Right.
Okay.
And so this community happened, and it was a pretty exciting group of people. And these are friends that, I made 20 years ago that are still pretty good friends with me today. And we still go to Wonderfest every year, and we still meet up, and we talk about model kits, and we see what each other's doing. And it's become I've made a lot of good friends through this thing too.
Awesome. Yeah, Anthony tells me.
Does that answer your question?
That does. That's a good. That's a good start.
That's great.
So I could ramble on forever.
Well, that's fine. So how do you think it's changed over the years?
Wow. Well, the modeling community is shrinking. It's as I said before, when we were kids, everybody built models, and when we were kids, we'd slap them together. So you were building, a dozen models a year, if not more than that. Today, when somebody builds a model, it's an older person. It's generally anybody that's at least in their 20s, if not in their 50s.
Right.
A lot of us that are still building were building when we were kids. But it's not like it was when you had every kid in the world building. You used to go to any model, any toy store or department store, and there would be a whole aisle or even 2 aisles full of plastic model kits. So that's changed. That's kind of gone away. But there are still people that are very passionate about it. And because of this passion, there is still a hobby that exists. And there are still companies out there selling model kits and creating model kits. The quality of what we're building today is so much better than what we had when we were kids. When we were kids, we all built that 18-inch Enterprise from AMT. And if you were lucky, you managed to get one nacelle attached to the hull.
Well,
it was a miracle if you could get both of them.
Yes.
But it was okay kit if you could build it.
Yep.
But it wasn't a dead-on accurate kit.
No.
There was a guy when I was in high school. There was a guy. We're talking 35 years ago. A guy named Paul Newitt published these books called the Starfleet Assembly Manual.
Yep.
And he kind of introduced and opened my eyes to a new way of building, a new way of looking at model kits, in that you could take this piece of plastic and turn it into something that really looked good and really reflected what you wanted it to be. It didn't just look like a plastic model that was painted white with some decals stuck on it. It looked like a Starship Enterprise when you got done with it. And that really was an inspiration for me. And I think what Paul did with those books changed the science fiction modeling community, because all of a sudden he was getting attention. Companies like AMT started looking at, how can we do our model kits better? How can we put lights in them? How can we make them look better and sell them better? And so it kind of inspired a lot of change within the modeling hobby. You've seen magazines come along, like Amazing Figure Modeler, that promotes a very specific aspect of the hobby, but it teaches people how to do things better, how to paint things better, how to use an airbrush, how to detail, even just down to things like painting an eyeball to make it look like an eyeball, and not just like a black dot on a face of a kit.
There's a whole lot of new skills that sort of came within the figure modeling, the fantasy, the sci-fi, that like a new set of skills that need to be mastered, right?
Well, and then that was a big challenge too when I was going to Wonderfest. One of the early things that the people that ran the show and I talked about was a thing was to educate people, how to teach them how to build models, how to hide a scene, how to prime a kit, how to paint a kit, how to create weathering and shadows and add photo etch and things like that. How do you improve the model building skills of the people that are out there? And I think that's one of the things that Wonderfest has really succeeded at doing.
Yes, absolutely. I love that show just for that you really get to do some stuff, and it's way more in depth that way than sort of the local shows I'm used to. So yeah, that's a really good point.
It's also a bigger show, and it brings talent from all over the country and all over the world to just for that focus.
Exactly. One of our goals is I know Anthony's been a couple of times. I want to get down there too, and we'll bring the podcast down.
I plan my life around it every year. Seriously.
Yeah, and that's where we met. I still have a pen. You gave me a Cult TV Man pen when we first met. It was a number of years ago, but
he actually has it framed up on the wall.
I use it. It's my go-to pen at my workbench.
Well, when it runs out of ink, the bad news is you can't refill them.
Means you'll just have to go and get another one, Anthony.
Yeah, it'll make me buy more of them.
Exactly.
But let me get back to your question about change.
Yeah.
One of the biggest changes that we're facing now is that as the hobby has shrunk, is people having access to it. You can't go to your local dime store and buy model kits anymore, or your local department store, even your local hobby shop. The hobby shops have disappeared across this country. So the internet has really been a boon to the hobby for a couple of reasons. One, it's made it accessible. You can now go online and purchase the products that you used to have to search high and low for.
Yeah, I remember those days.
And you've got the community. I mean, not just on the Cult TV Man website, but you've got Facebook, and you've got Pinterest, and you've got Instagram. I mean, everywhere you go, there are little groups of people talking about model kits, building them and sharing their ideas. And that's what is new and exciting and growing in this hobby, where that didn't exist 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I was totally isolated in, let's say, pre-1998. I didn't know anyone who liked the science fiction models. I couldn't find them. I only had one or two that I paid an exorbitant amount for, and I had to hunt, like you said, high and low. And, there's nobody to talk to. I think I had one friend who was interested in the same thing.
Yep. We all thought we were the only people in the world that were interested in these things.
Yes, yeah.
And to some extent, our world was a lot smaller, so we were the only people.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, Anthony.
Well, yeah, our second question for you, Steve, is we know that you've recently got into distribution for Doll and Hobby and also Mobius. How did that come about? And how does I'll do a follow-up question as well.
It goes back to some of the change. The hobby's always changing. Mm-hmm. There's always new companies coming along and old companies going away, and it's always shifting a little bit. Mobius Models was sold last year to the guys that run Pegasus Hobbies. And at that point, they were not at Pegasus. They were not interested in the small wholesale operation that Mobius ran under their company, Doll and Hobby. And so they offered it to me. Frank Winsper, the guy who owned Mobius and Doll and Hobby, and his mother, offered it to me, and it was at a good time in my life where I was just transitioning away from the broadcast industry. So it kind of fell into my lap. And
wonderful.
I was able to, work out deals so I can offer Mobius models, Pegasus Hobbies, all the Round 2 brands, AMT, Lindbergh, Polar Lights, MPC, plus a few others, Atlantis, the new success, or the guys who got many of the older Vell toolings. So I can offer those. I'm a small scale distributor. I specialize in science fiction and monsters, just like the Cult TV Man hobby shop. But there are a lot of small hobby shops that still have a hard time getting these kits. Not all the distributors carry them, and they don't carry a lot of them. So, something like a Battlestar Galactica might be available, in theory, but not all the distributors have it.
Right.
So I offer that service to help hobby shops and comic book shops and other small operations sell these kits and get them at competitive prices.
Oh, very cool. So how does that compare when you were just sort of retailing, and now you're doing the distribution? They must be two fairly different jobs.
It is. It's two separate jobs. With running the hobby shop, a lot of it's automated. Somebody puts an order in online. I print out the order, I pack it up, and I ship it out. With a distributor, you have to keep your clients, informed as to what's coming out and what's available. It's a lot more manual. It's a lot more time consuming. I can spend 3 hours packing up 2 or 3, wholesale orders, while in the same amount of time I could be doing dozens and dozens of retail orders.
Right.
Oh, wow.
But it facilitates the volume that comes into the operation. It allows me to better serve both my retail and wholesale customers because I'm buying more volume. I have a wider selection. I operate now out of a warehouse where up until a year ago I was operating out of my house, my garage, and my basement.
And I bet your wife's very happy about that.
Yeah, I'm sitting down here right now in the basement where everything had been, and it's still a bit of a disaster a year later.
Well,
I just haven't had the time to go in and reclaim the whole thing.
Well, you know what? Just
to.
Remember, if you get a bit of grief, you can remind your lovely wife that she did buy you that kit for your birthday. That started the whole thing, right?
I'm a lucky guy. She's a very, very supportive person.
Good for you.
I couldn't do it without her.
Right.
And when we're busy, which at different times, whenever a big shipment comes in, she's there helping out.
That's awesome.
My daughter's been in helping out. I had her crushing boxes last Friday. My son, when we moved everything, it was literally 5 truckloads of stuff that we hauled to the warehouse. I mean, that wasn't just at the house. I had a couple of smaller storage units full of stuff too.
Yeah, it
grows. It's a family operation.
Cool. So where do you foresee taking, now that you've moved to this bigger space and you're sort of working these two angles? Where do you foresee it going in the future?
Well, from my end of the business, if you've seen the Land of the Giants snake diorama.
Yes.
I put that out. When I contacted Round 2 and set up my business with them last year, first thing they said to me was, "Hey, Steve, if you're interested, maybe we could do some special things." And so I called them up and I said, "Hey, listen, you've got these Irwin Allen kits, tools just sitting there that you're not doing anything with. If I get a license, will you run them for me?"
Wow.
And they seemed to be, they responded very positively towards that.
So would these be, I'm sorry, I gotta be honest, I'm not that familiar with these. Are these like vintage toolings that now have been sitting dormant for a while? Or?
Yeah, the snake was produced by Polar Lights in, I think, 1998. It was originally an Aurora kit back in the late 60s.
60s, okay.
And, most of the Aurora tooling has disappeared over the years. It was destroyed for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
And so Polar Lights in the 90s, that was kind of their thing, was reproducing a lot of these Aurora kits. Yep. They did the Addams Family House, which we were talking about earlier. They did some of the monster stuff, like the Witch, the Aurora Witch. They did the Land of the Giants kits. They did Lost in Space, Cyclops kit. There were quite a few Aurora kits that they recreated. And yeah, these toolings have been sitting in a factory warehouse for all this time. They can't constantly be putting them out.
Right.
They put out the products. companies like Round 2, companies like Mobius, they're focused, they're companies that are out there to make money. So they put out product that they think is going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I know Round 2 has not felt successful with is figure kits.
Right.
They did a Superman kit a few years ago and a few others, and they just weren't, to my understanding, satisfied with the sales on them. So they have quit doing figure kits.
But they're willing to.
Up until recently. Well, it's my money. It's not their money.
Yeah,
they'll take my money.
Yeah. So you're able to step in and say, I'm interested in kind of, taking this.
Yeah, and part of the reason is the hobby needs product. As everything changes up a little bit, Revell went bankrupt last year.
Yes.
So Revell disappeared. We didn't know at that point if Revell was going to come back or not. Mobius Models was sold, and in that interim year where Mobius was sold, the amount of product that was available from Mobius declined. Round 2 has fortunately been ramping things up. They've been very satisfied with a lot of the products they've done, but I still felt that there was a gap and that we needed some additional product in the marketplace. And so I was doing what I felt I could do. I'd like to continue along those lines. It just depends on what is available, what sort of operation, things I can organize and arrange, what sort of licensing is available. The Irwin Allen licensing was easily available to me, but other things are not. If you start looking at, Star Trek, that's tied up. If you look at some of the Warner Brothers products, those are very expensive. The Universal lines are very difficult to license these days.
So I'm curious about the Star Trek ones, because a lot of people in the model community, we've heard about the challenges and fan produced stuff and whatnot. It seems to be really quite tricky. So I know you're a fan of Trek and right? Am I correct? I did see a picture of you with the filming miniature, right? Yeah. So with that, is it just something that's going to be out of reach because of cost for the licensing, or is it something that will eventually get within your reach?
Everything's a little different, and everything's always changing. For a long time, AMT had the Star Trek license. And then they kind of went away in the early 2000s. And that opened the door for Polar Lights to come along and get a Star Trek license. Revell had a license for a little while for the Voyager kits.
Right.
Revell currently has a license in Europe for Star Trek kits.
Yes, they do.
Bandai had a short-term license a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago. So the licensing is out there, but the reality is, the amount of money, not just for the license, but to tool up product and to get a significant amount of product into the marketplace, it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
I mean,
so that's
it
the challenge.
really is. And it's one thing to get a license and produce a kit, then you got to sell it.
Yep.
And it's not that easy to sell. To sell a kit, you need to get it into the marketplace. You need to get it out to the distributors. Right now, the Land of the Giant Snake is available from 2 distributors and a couple of major retailers. And that's it. It's hard to crack that nut. You've got Horizon for distribution. You've got Stevens International. You've got Hobby Time, Hobbies Unlimited, and a few other smaller ones. But it's a very small group of companies there, and getting your foot in the door with them is a challenge. So, Dahlin Hobby helps a little bit in that aspect, in that I've got a few good clients that are helping sell the kit. But it's a challenge. It really is a challenge.
Yeah.
And you don't have the trade shows that you used to have. There used to be a big trade show in Chicago every year called iHobby. And before that, I think it was RICTA. And that's where everybody would come from all across the country, all the hobby shops, and meet with the distributors and meet with the manufacturers. That doesn't exist anymore.
Wow. I've actually never heard of that.
I've heard of it.
That's
I remember
really
hearing of it. Yeah,
yeah,
it's interesting.
Trade shows trade shows were a big piece of the puzzle for a long time, and those are faded away. I just went to a small trade show 2 weeks ago up in Connecticut. The distributor Hobby Time put that on, and it was a good chance to get up there and meet some of the other manufacturers, see some of the friends I've made in the hobby as well. But that's something that is really sorely lacking.
It is a tough thing, and
there's one out in Colorado, I think, or Las Vegas. There are some smaller ones out west, but they don't quite have the impact of that big national show we used to be.
Now, what's interesting is you still tend to see that in both Europe and the Far East, where you've got trade days at the bigger things. So it's it's a fascinating thing how various segments of the market in the world tend to change, which is a nice segue into my next question. Is if you can, are most of your purchasers tend to be North American, or are you finding the European and Far East markets now are getting interested in, particularly in some of these classic things?
My market is generally domestic. I'd say about 80% of it's U.S. based, but the other 20 is international. And the big challenge with international is shipping.
Right.
And that's becoming a bigger issue in the United States too. But shipping costs internationally, and then you go to Europe, you go to Canada, even Australia these days, they have to pay a import duty. On the product. So what may start out as a $30 kit, by the time they get it with shipping and duties, it could turn into a $70 or an $80 kit.
Wow.
That's a very, very much discouraging for international customers.
It's funny because back in the say 90s, for example, when we really wanted something, we couldn't get it, and now you can get it, but it's you got to pay, right? And I think that's something we got to, from the consumer side, as a fan and the builder, we have to reconcile that a little bit. Is that everything's at our fingertip, but you do have to. It doesn't get shipped for free, and sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow, right?
Exactly.
Well, we still think about 98-cent model kits and $2 model kits. I mean, when I was a kid, I'd go on my bike and I'd take my allowance and I'd go down to the department store and I'd buy a kit for $2. And that just doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.
It's not the same world, right?
But gas isn't 15 cents a gallon either.
Exactly. In fact, after this interview, we're going to briefly talk about someone else released a very nice model airplane maker. Recently released a very nice blog post on like how he calls it the expensive model kit myth, and he goes in, he shows charts, and exactly gas and everything like that, and and as I still may maintain, it's a cheap hobby. In the end, if you look at the price per hour, but people have to realize, times have changed.
Well, and the amount of kits you sell today. If you tool up a brand new kit, in this genre, spaceships and monsters, your initial run of kits is going to be 2,000-3,000 kits.
Yeah, people don't realize
that.
So
you've got to make your money back on that. And so when you're talking about a minimum of $30,000, $40,000 to do a small kit, tool it up and produce it, you got to sell a lot of kits at a wholesale or distribution price, not full retail. To pay your money, to make your money back.
Very, very much so. And this is where people don't realize. So just one other sub question there, because I was looking at your website with the you released some news on the 4th. So when let's say you say here Mobius has not renewed Galactica or Universal's monster license, so does that mean the company who made Galactica now has it and it would be available for someone else if they choose to, or how does that work?
Well, it isn't quite that easy.
Okay.
The way these corporate conglomerates work is, and you read about it in the news, is every so often you've got new presidents coming into these groups. Let's say somebody moves into, there's new leadership at Universal. They want to bring in their own people. Their own people come in and they want to make their own movies. So they'll kill off any projects that are currently in production or that aren't fully into production, that are in development. They want to start with a clean slate. They bring in their own people to run all the different departments, from advertising to licensing to catering, that happen within these organizations. So you have this full turnover of personnel. And that affects the licensing department. So all of a sudden, the people that were handling the license are gone. There's new people. They've got new goals. They want to do things differently. So they basically don't want to renew anybody's licenses. And then they want to renegotiate. And, of course, they all think that everything's worth $1 million. And you know, the reality it isn't. Not everything's a Star Wars. Not everything's a Star Trek. And they want to focus on the high dollar licenses, the stuff that's going to bring in the money. So that's going to be any current blockbuster that's going on. You know, and something like the Universal Monsters, they are kind of really quite a ways down on the ladder. And Battlestar Galactica, something like that. That is a show that's been off the air for 10 years now. So it's not a high priority product that they're interested in promoting. And so it kind of these licenses become lost kind of in the shuffle. It's not that they aren't available or they can't. It's like nobody cares on the licensing side. We care on our side, and the companies that want to produce the kits care. But trying to get attention. Take, for example, the 2001 kits. You know, everybody's been saying, why doesn't anybody do a Discovery? Why haven't they done a good space station? And the reality was they couldn't get the licensing. The way Warner Brothers was set up and the relationship with the Kubrick estate, nobody was really sure who owned the licensing on that. And so they couldn't just give anybody a license to do a Discovery or a Moonbus or whatever. And then that changed. So when something seems unavailable one year, all of a sudden everything can change a year later.
Well, and that's one of the things that always surprises me too, is like when you look at, you know, there's us who are the true fans of that, but when you look at, for example, when that Discovery came out, that monster kit of Discovery, you know, at least it seemed to get a ton of press. And, you know, I think there's a lot of people now, thanks to video and Netflix and stuff like that, there's a lot of people who are watching these older shows, whether it's, you know, classic Star Wars, you know, Galactica from 10 years ago or 2001, and all of a sudden they're going, you know, where are these kids? Like, I know myself, it's only been in the last 3 or 4 years I've picked up a couple of the Mobius Galactica kits. You know, so, you know, when I hear the licensing maybe dropped, you start thinking, oh, should I stock up or not?
You know, I tell people, and this is the sad reality. Get it when you see it, because you never know when something's going to go away or not. Exactly. You just don't have that hindsight or that insight to know those things. And you know, everybody kind of puts it out. Oh, I'll get it next year. Oh, I'll get it next year. Pretty soon, a kit's been out there 5 years, and all of a sudden it's gone, and people are upset that they can't get it anymore. You've had 5 years to buy the kit.
Oh, I know.
You know,
it's funny
can only blame yourself if you missed it.
It's funny to see, though. You're absolutely right. Like, I know in the case of, I bought Galactica fairly soon after it came out, and just Pegasus wasn't a priority, and I happened to, there was a local guy who was getting out of it, and I picked up the Mobius Pegasus and the Mobius Raptor, and for, you know, 2 very good deals, and exactly, because you don't see them often, and you know, that really says a lot too. Okay, Anthony.
Oh, well, I guess it sort of ties into a little bit what we were discussing earlier about the community, and I was just noting that you carry such an interesting variety of, like, sci-fi, the movie monsters, comic book figures, that kind of stuff, and the Aurora kits, and you know, I wanted to ask you, was it challenging to find that audience or of customers when you wanted to get into sort of the retailing, you know, and selling, and not just having sort of that community hub?
Well, some of it found me. You know, that's one of the things about it. But it's the hobby's fickle. You know, somebody that builds a Starship Enterprise isn't going to build a Frankenstein monster. There are people that build a little bit of everything, but they're generally 2 separate groups of people. And then you can, you know, you can even split it further. People that buy Star Wars model kits, those Bandai kits, they're not hardcore Star Trek modelers. And then now you go off and you've got a whole nother genre, Gundams. And in the past, I've tried, and nobody wanted to buy Gundams from me. So,
Really?
Yeah, honest to goodness.
I'm a huge Gundam fan, so.
Well, I'm actually looking into expanding into that area again.
Yeah, I saw that you're having you're having that discussion. Well, it seems to be those kits are, I think, really expertly marketed because they've created a snap fit kit that comes in all the correct colors to the animation. So they've really done that. Set it up in such a way it's really great for beginners to get into and have something that they can slam together in an afternoon. It's almost like the way it was in the 60s and get something that's pleasing and satisfying, or the traditional modelers such as myself who glue, paint, and do all the regular steps to try and weather, try and make it a little bit beyond the animation, right, and more what you would imagine in the real world. But if you get into it, best of luck.
It's another rabbit hole, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but like you said, it is kind of a different, it is a different vein of science fiction, right? It tends to be kind of like siloed, right? It's like,
I think you run into a lot of that. Is these hobbies are a bit siloed, and then it's not a bad thing. It's that you have these communities and these people that are very passionate about it. I don't think that they're deliberately avoiding other groups, but they like everything. It's just like Star Trek, Star Wars. People have their passions.
Right.
Yeah. Isn't variety the bat? Like, isn't variety? I as a builder, I enjoy the variety. I'm doing a little bit of everything, and certainly from the retailing side, it's nice if people will take a chance on something a little different, and bump up your sales, right?
Well, there is crossover. I mean, that's the good thing. People, if suddenly you've built all the Star Trek kits that are out there, it's like, oh, let me try one of these things, and it's available to them because they can come to my website and purchase it, and they don't have to hunt it down. And so I still try to keep that focus of offering this general science fiction genre of product. And if you go too far out of there, I've tried other things. I've tried a little bit of action figures. I've tried a little bit of bobbleheads, thinking there'd be some crossover appeal. No, people come to me for those spaceships and monsters.
Right.
Well, I guess you built that branding, and that now you're known, right? You're the cult TV man, so you have to sort of. It sounds like what you're saying is you have to focus on kind of what you do the best, right?
Yeah, well, that's just it, and you don't want to dilute that. You don't want people to say, "Oh, I remember when he was selling Star Trek kits. It's like now he's doing all this other stuff."
Yeah.
Nah, it's like I want to do what I do well, and I want to do what I like, and so that's kind of where I've set my focus on. And I'd like to think I've done it all pretty well, but not everything goes well. One of the interesting areas that I expanded into a couple of years ago was space exploration. Your Apollo stuff, your Mercury stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And that actually was a very positive direction to go in, because there's a lot of people doing that, and a lot of crossover. And even now, especially with the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, that's one of the hottest areas of the hobby right now, is all those vintage Apollo kits.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And a lot of people might not have even thought about that. Those were another set of kits we built when we were kids.
Yep, exactly.
That haven't been available or too available for a long time, and now all of a sudden they're out there again and people want them.
Yep. Okay.
Nice.
We're getting near the end here. We always tend to wrap things up with a couple of questions we ask everyone. So just really short, I know, because this could go forever. Where do you see the hobby in 5 to 10 years?
As we talked about a little bit tonight, hobby's changing. In the market for it is shrinking. The availability of the hobby shops are going away. So you're going to see more availability of this product online, not just me, but probably other places as well. A lot of the manufacturers are going in directly into sales. You have a lot of the distributors are going directly into sales, cutting out the retailers, so to speak. So you're going to see that happening. You're going to continue to see a lot of reissues. It doesn't cost money to tool up a new kit if you're doing a reissue. If you're doing a new kit, it's tens of thousands of dollars to do that. So that's why you see a lot of reissues. That's going to continue. As long as there's interest, as long as somebody thinks they can try and sell something, you're going to see better packaging. Round 2, if you take a look at what Round 2 is doing with the kits, they're taking these old Star Trek kits and they're putting them in nice new boxes. They're plussing them up. They're maybe making improvements. That is relatively inexpensive to do, and so you'll see a lot of that. Better decals. You're going to see more aftermarket stuff. There's a lot of photo etch out there, particularly, and I'll throw out Paragraphics as a prime manufacturer quality photo etch. And then you've got aftermarket decals. Rick Sternbach, this former designer on Star Trek, he's got his line of space model systems decals that, the Apollo spacecraft particularly are selling extremely well.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know Rick was doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, those are Rick decals.
We'll put the link up.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of that stuff happening. You'll see, everybody talks about print on demand. And 3D printing. I think that is one of those areas that is going to enhance the hobby. I don't see it taking over the hobby, particularly because when you print something, it's a one-off. I mean, it's like printing on your home computer. You print out a document. If you need 10 copies, it's easier to run, or 100 copies, it's easier to run them to a print shop and have them do it. It's not a great tool for mass production.
No.
And the quality that you get today, if you order something from Shapeways, it's all over the place. One time you might get something good, one time you might not. It's not cheap. It tends to be a little expensive for small parts. But it will be out there. It's just another tool, another tool for modelers. I think innovation is one of the things that you're going to see a lot of and continue in this hobby. Light kits. The first light kits that I was selling were basically wires and resistors and LEDs in a bag, and there you still get some of that. But now you've got Tenna Controls. Ralph Tenaglia is doing these wonderful light kits that are pre-programmed circuits, and you don't have to do that much soldering on them. So it's kind of like taking these quality to the next level. And he's got access to manufacturing or low-run manufacturing, so they're able to do pretty sophisticated designs at a fairly reasonable cost. You're still talking about $50 to $100 for a quality light kit, but it's going to do all sorts of things that you could have never done 15 years ago.
Way more advanced.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Awesome. Okay, so while we got you here, any exclusive or semi-exclusive tidbits or good deals going on the site right now? I notice you have a flash sale going on until tomorrow.
Yeah, I try and offer, if I've got, one of the things that people seem to like is a good sale. And so I have the opportunity to get some product at a discount, and I'm able to pass that along. Sometimes I have product that's just been sitting in the warehouse forever, and I got to get rid of it, so I'll mark it down. So I have. That's a great thing to do. I know that there's some good kits coming up. I know for Dahlin Hobby at Wonderfest we announced that we were going to reissue the the Aurora Cyclops and Chariot. We are adding a couple of resin figures to it of Judy Robinson and Dr. Smith that were not part of the original kit. And it'll have a cardboard backdrop, hoping to have that available before the end of the year.
Anthony's too young to remember that movie.
I've seen the Cyclops.
Go get the DVDs.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it's also on Netflix. I think MeTV's running the show
too. There you
go. Let's see. Round 2 is churning away. They're doing those Star Trek Discovery kits. I know those had been in the works for a while, and they finally announced them. That I'm excited mostly about that Enterprise that they're going to do. They're still small kits. Round 2 has said they want to do bigger kits, so I'm hoping that they will bring those about. Mobius models, we're still waiting for Batgirl to come from them and Wonder Woman. So hopefully those things will be coming. The guys at Atlantis, they keep digging up all sorts of new tooling.
I know. It's hilarious. I see Mr. Gassler's back.
Yes. That should be arriving here in the next week or two.
I remember those from when I was a kid.
It's nice to see this stuff coming out. The guys at Atlantis, Pete and Rick, are just like kids in a candy shop.
Awesome.
They don't even know all the things they've got. They were showing me some pictures, which I really can't tell you what they were.
That's okay. That's quite okay.
But they've got some stuff that's never been actually produced.
Right.
Oh, wow.
They've got some stuff that was designed and tooled up but never actually released.
Wow.
So they're working on getting some of that stuff out. I mean, they've got some exciting things going on.
Oh, exactly.
There.
So, and it's for all genres. That's what I'm saying. It's nice. You got the car guys.
I've been carrying some of their military stuff.
Yep.
They've been reissued. I don't do military stuff, but this is old vintage tooling. And some of it's old Aurora stuff. And so there is some interest in it. And so I've been offering that stuff up and helping to support them in their endeavor, too.
That's awesome.
I think that's one thing that I have to emphasize to people out there is if you want to see this hobby continue, you have to support the manufacturers.
Yep, exactly.
I see some guys that out there online that say, oh, this detail's wrong, and they can't, in today's day and age, they can't get it right, I'm not going to buy it. Well, really, if you're going to not buy something for a tiny little detail, you're just contributing to the decline of the hobby.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's like anything else.
Let me add this little point, and this is something I've tried to tell people for years and years and years. We are model builders. We take a piece of plastic, a box of plastic, and we turn it into something fantastic. And we take it, and it doesn't matter, if it's a perfect kit or a kit that is less than perfect. It's our job as a modeler to turn it into something.
Right.
And really, what's the fun of being handed a box of stuff that you just put together and stick on a shelf? Part of the hobby is the creative end. How do I achieve this dirty engine look? How do I put lights into this kit that isn't designed to have it? I mean, models are a challenge. Models inspire us and push us to do better. And so don't ever lose sight of that.
Absolutely.
That's the fun of this hobby.
Perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm always kind of fiddling, and I just don't want to put it together the way it is. I kind of have my own little vision, and I want to do something that I've never done before. So part of like you said, part of the fun is the challenge.
If you want a perfect kit, go out and just buy a die cast. You can open the box and put it on your shelf.
That's an excellent way to put it.
Don't take the fun away from us that want to build a model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, our last thing is, and we ask this every time, what's on your bench, if there is anything on your bench?
I got to tell you, I am at this job virtually 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If I'm not sitting in the office getting orders packed and shipped up, I am sitting at home updating websites or doing bookkeeping or all the other things that you have to do to maintain a business. So I don't get to build like I used to.
Oh dear.
Yep. The last kit I actually completed, I built up a 1968 AMT Enterprise, the original issue that had the orange domes and the little grain of wheat light bulbs.
Yeah.
I did it for a magazine article for a magazine that's no longer around, so that's how long it's been. But I did it out of the box.
Good for you.
I didn't use any aftermarket stuff except to add some internal lighting and better decals. And the goal of that project was to take this 68 Enterprise, which is fairly maligned, and show what you can do with it with a good paint job. Really, and then basically I built it right, did all the seam work with the way you want, you expect to do it, painted it the right colors, weathered it well, and really built the model I always wanted to.
Good for you.
Awesome.
Good for you.
That's great.
Yeah, and you know that's
awesome.
what this hobby is about. I've got a bunch of other things that are sitting around that are half built, and you know, one of those big 16-inch Godzillas, the Polaroid, that has just been reissued again.
That's awesome.
I've got one of those sitting on my workbench. I need to finish it sometime. I had some kits I started with my kids, years ago, and now my kids are in college, and the models still aren't quite done.
Where does the time go? Where does the time go? Exactly.
Right on.
I actually slapped together a Psycho house for Wonderfest this year, just because I needed one to display. I did a base. One of the products we introduced this year at Wonderfest was a base for the Psycho house, and then we needed a Psycho house to display on it, so I slapped one of those together.
Very cool.
Tube glue and everything. It was like it was a disaster. But
awesome. Hey, sometimes
you just got to slap something together.
I know.
The fun of it
I find the same thing. Okay, well, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I have a feeling we could go for a few more hours with some of the stories and some of the.
Let's do it again.
We're going to do it again
we'll get
sometime.
on again.
Definitely.
That'd be great.
That would be really awesome. So thank you again, and as I say, we're going to when we have this aired, we will let you know, and we'll throw a shout out your way.
One quick thing, the IPMS Nationals are coming up in Chattanooga the second weekend in August. Cult TV Man will be there. I hope everybody from all over the U.S. can come to that show. I know the IPMS isn't always been favorable to science fiction and monster builders, but that group has changed. That group has changed too, and I find it's a great show to go to. It's the second to Wonderfest for me, is that IPMS National.
Awesome.
Oh, very good.
So I would encourage everybody to come to Chattanooga for that show.
Okay.
And then big show in Orlando in October. I think it's October or is it September? It's called Model Palooza. It's done by the IPMS group down there, so I'm going to be there. So I invite everybody to come to that show as well.
Awesome. Okay, thank you again, Steve, and we will talk to you next time.
Okay. I appreciate you guys having me.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. That was an absolutely awesome interview. He has a ton of stories, doesn't he?
Yeah, what a fun guy.
Yeah. As we said there, we're definitely going to have him back. So, okay, a couple of other things. We're almost done here. Just as another subtopic, I saw a Facebook page, or actually a blog post, but from modelairplanemaker.com. It's a blog I've been following for a while. He always writes some really good stuff, interesting stuff. And this time he talked a little bit. And it's something I just want people to think about, because we're going to talk about it, I think, later on as a separate topic. But as he says here, one of the repeating things you hear in hobby circles is that the price of models today are out of line with prices of years ago. There are several variations to this theme. Today's manufacturers are pricing themselves out of the hobby. Kits are too expensive for kids. Models cost a lot more today than they used to be. I'm on a fixed income. I can't afford the hobby anymore. So yeah, a lot of, and some similar things with that. Well, he goes into full detail, and I pretty well agree with everything he says here. I'm going to put the post up, and on the show notes, I'm also going to put a Facebook post about it. I already did. I really want people's input on this, because I'd really like to know what other people think, because I hear this.
Always great.
Yeah,
always
I hear
great to hear from the listeners.
Yeah, I love hearing from the listeners, but it's something I've heard the same thing. And there's times when I'm on a show and that I have to bite my tongue.
I personally, I can't believe, and I think it's really hard to refute with. It's so accessible right now, and you could I'm spending. I can't build it faster than 6 months, so. I guess, is it too expensive, or do people want too much? You know what I mean? I don't need all the model kits I have in my closet, my stash closet. So, I think you can always get great deals.
Yep.
At hobby shops, you can find sales. For example, the Cult TV Man has those flash sales, and if you go to a show, you can get really well priced kits, and you don't need a lot to really spend a lot of time and get a lot of enjoyment out of one project.
Yeah. Well, and it's like we said before too. Compared to other things, dollar for dollar, minute by minute, it's still the best deal around. You can go to a concert and a dinner and everything, blow a couple $100, or buy a fairly nice kit and spend a month or two. So yeah,
or longer.
Or longer. So it's something we're going to talk about a little bit more. It's one of these recurring themes that gets under my crawl.
Yeah, worth exploring for sure. So I think we're exploring this a lot with a lot of our interview guests. Is it's not cheap to create these models that we all love and enjoy. It's an expensive endeavor, and Steve talks a little bit about that. And
and I think people will be surprised at some of the numbers that are actually made. Like we've heard that, but I don't think a lot of people are aware of sometimes how few happens on a first run or whatever. So anyway, check that out. I'll put a page to the blog, and again, look on our Facebook page. I've already thrown something up there. Okay, we're almost done. Let's talk about Talking Tools.
Talking Tools.
Your turn today.
This week we have the FlexiFile Touch and Flow.
Yes.
And I think this has been around for a while, but a lot of people don't know what it is or how to use it.
And I know you're a big fan of it.
I love this thing. Yeah. It's amazing. And I got to tell you, I've broken 3 of them, and I'm still going to get another one. So the Touch and Flow is a styrene glue applicator.
Right.
So it's basically like a syringe needle and like a glass tube, and it definitely helps if you use FlexiFile's styrene glue. So it is not. I repeat, not for CA glue. It's not for super glue.
Right.
It's for your styrene glue. But what you do is you suck up some of the styrene cement into the
your
tube,
finger,
and then
not
you
your
use
mouth.
that needle applicator to get it just in the right spot. And I mean, you can put just a tiny bit.
Yep.
It's tinier than the fine tip of the Tamiya ultra thin brush.
Yeah.
It's really great. And someone pointed out to me, our good friend Murray Press pointed out to me that it's sort of a longer applicator. So let's say you have to get deep inside somewhere, like inside a wing root or something like that, you can actually use it that way to kind of sneak in where you couldn't reach. But I really like this thing. And FlexiFile has this kit, and I really recommend the whole kit because what you get is a holder where you can set your glue pot, and there's a space for the actual applicator, and then there's a second small little bottle that basically you put it on the end of your applicator, and you just use it to kind of suck up the liquid.
It avoids,
so it's just like a little.
Yeah. And when and we should say health and safety. Don't use your mouth to suck it up.
No, don't.
Not
good.
Not good. Use the old finger trick.
Post a picture of this thing.
Yeah, post a picture of it. I wonder. Here's something, because I've played with it a little bit. I haven't really gotten into as much as you had. Would the applicator work with the Tamiya Extra Thin? I wonder.
I will tell you, I ruined my first one by using. I was cheap and I didn't buy the FlexiFile.
Right.
Well, I've already got 5 bottles of glue.
Yeah.
So I have this stuff called Plastic Weld, which people might remember, the orange bottle.
I remember that.
And it's just a hotter. What I found out later was that this glue, developed by Plastruct, it was a hotter formula, like chemically hotter.
Right.
So what had happened was I got it inside my Touch and Flow applicator, and it melted the epoxy that holds the needle to the glass.
Oops.
So it didn't work. So so it's just junked, right? And they're not that expensive.
No, they're not.
And when I think they cost about $7 for the applicator.
Yeah.
But when you get the kit, you get you actually get a better deal.
It's a nice little setup.
So you spend a little bit more, but here's Mr. Sparkles walking across the stuff.
Our official podcast cat.
Here he is. Yeah.
There he is.
So I think buying that kit is a really great investment. It's so powerful how you can control how little amount of glue. Because I find that's one of the problems, right? We're always putting too much glue.
Yeah.
Getting it all over our fingers and in our mouths and
Well, let's try and avoid the mouths, please.
Just kidding.
Yes. It's let's try and avoid that. I know the super glue you get on your fingers and with the fiddly photo etch. Alrighty. So
never had it in my mouth.
Speaking of photo etch, let's move on to what's on the bench.
Yeah.
My Edouard Spitfire, the Mark 9C, actually the cockpit with all that fiddly photo etch is done. Even after I don't know how I did it, but I completely forgot to put the lap belts in. So that was a little bit of fun getting those back in. But I did succeed with not too much language. So that's always good. So so the cockpit's done, just 1 or 2 more bits, and then I can seal up the fuselage, and from here things should really start moving forward. But my goodness, I find the older I get, these smaller kits, I tell you, I'm glad I don't have any more 72nd scale Spitfires with a lot of photo etch. Let me just put it that way.
There you go.
All right, what have you got?
Time to move up in the world, right?
Exactly. I got some 48 scale stuff as well. Don't you worry. The stash is well filled out with those two.
Excellent. I'm still working away on my Aliens M577 APC. I've been painting it. I've been getting some stowage ready from the Tamiya kits.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming along. The lighting's all finished. It's all buttoned up. And I'm working away on that. And I've been prompted to work on my Musaru Cup challenge.
You've been more than prompted. You've been like said, hey, what's going on, dude?
Called out in public?
I know. Well, if you didn't start it soon, I was going to start calling you out.
Well, I did last week I stripped all the chrome parts and cleaned it.
All right.
Realized it was missing the windshield, but so I did clean up some parts, and I've got the passenger compartment, cockpit. Yeah. I've got that part put together. The
passenger compartment. Let's just call it what it is.
Yes. And so I'm gonna work on that, get a bit more assembly done, and hopefully prime some stuff soon. And I think I can order up from round 2 the replacement windshield. Awesome. But I was kind of toying around with just creating just a replacement windshield out of some plastic I have handy.
Yeah, you know what? You could always tint the windshield. You remember that color plastic? You gave me some?
Yes. Yeah, I was going to maybe use some of that.
Yeah, maybe some of that. That could be cool. So
if not, I'll order up a replacement part.
Yeah. So for new listeners, the Musaru Cup is a challenge between the two leading modeling podcasts, us here, the Scale Model Podcast up in Canada, and our very good friends at On the Bench, which is down in Australia. The guys down there, we started a little challenge, are both our faults. So Ian, I believe, down there is building a Gundam. He was challenged too, and he challenged us to build a late 60s muscle car.
Yeah.
Which we hadn't done before.
And his is looking gorgeous. He's got all the color done on his Arjarja.
Well,
and
he must
great.
have far more time. I don't know what the heck.
I gotta say though, he does have an advantage. His kit is like beautifully engineered, probably went together.
Yeah,
my kit's a little bit dated.
Well, and I know David and Julian, they were already mentioning about next year's. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen there? So we'll figure out something. But yeah, definitely just a shout out to our friends at On the Bench. They podcast every 2 weeks as well, but they're in the off weeks. This week's episode was quite good. They really went into detail because two of them bought the big Airfix Hellcat.
Yeah, it was really neat to hear about how that was all put together.
Yep. Again, I just hope they have the room. I know one of them said probably not for a while, at least a year or so, because they're going to wait for all the inevitable aftermarket. But yeah, seeing some very good things. And, as they said, this is Airfix saying we're still in the game. So it was good to see.
Yeah, good for them. Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing Ian's build. I think, is it Ian that bought the kit?
I believe, David.
Yeah, it sounded like he was reviewing it.
Yeah, I'll have to double. If not, we will be corrected, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
some other news there. I did On the Bench. There are some super sanding block samples coming their way, so they're gonna get a chance to try those out and hopefully give some feedback
and see the awesomeness of them.
Yes, I hope they enjoy them.
Exactly. So we're looking forward. We're also looking forward. David's coming up to Canada in the winter. So we're looking forward to doing a live show. We're still working out the details, but we're already been talking to our good friends at IPMS Hamilton and the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. And wouldn't it be awesome if we could do a live podcast there? So we'll have to see. Actually, it'd be really wild if we could, depending on how we time it, because Melbourne is 14 hours ahead of us right now. It'd be neat, either in a morning or an evening, but we'll see what happens. But we'll definitely have David joining us at that point, and hopefully when the two podcasts meet, the universe doesn't explode or anything like that. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up because this is going to be an extra long show. You get a double helping this week once again.
Extra goodness.
Yep. So no sites and tips this week. We'll find something for in 2 weeks from now. So don't forget to subscribe. Let us know if you have any comments or suggestions at scalemodelpodcast@gmail.com. We do record bi-weekly, available where all your favorite podcasts are found. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Facebook page at facebook.com/scalemodelpodcast. We love hearing feedback and conversation about what people think or if they have ideas. Occasionally we do publish content on the YouTube channel, and as we said, there's a Patreon page at patreon.com/scalemodelpodcast. So if you want to get in for that draw of a single Super Sanding Block single, make sure you get in before we broadcast in the next podcast in 2 weeks, and we'll actually do the draw that night, just before we go to air. We'll keep it fair like that. So that's it for this week. So for the Scale Model Podcast, my name is Stuart Clark.
This is Anthony Goodman.
Thank you, and be well.